Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're looking very blue on the camera today. Can you make that, just shrink all that for our intro? There we go. Oh, look, now we're not quite so, now we're just really bright. Hi guys, it's October 27th, 2019. It's Sunday. You know what that means? It's around the world in an hour and a half.
Yeah. 50th straight week of protests. Yellow vests here clashing with police. Macron obviously does not have a hold of his country. Somebody there with some Viking horns. I can't believe that this is France. I mean, there's just kind of just like a lot of turmoil in the air, I think, worldwide. People are trying to revolt against their masters, and a lot of this has to do, in my opinion, with socialist policies. When you're reliant on the government for, maybe keeping gas prices at a certain level, for your pension, for your medical, when you're relying on the government rather than your own two hands, then you do riot, because that's...
If you want more, you have to demand it.
And you have to demand it by physical force. There was riots, protests today in Germany over some ecological issues. Farmers were protesting. They weren't allowed to use certain chemicals anymore.
They stifle ambition, and they stifle creativity, and they stifle innovation, because everybody understands, if I work harder and I earn more, I just have to give more to the government, so what's the point?
Right. You're absolutely right. And when you're just a free person and everything is by the sweat of your own brow, there's nobody to revolt against.
Right.
There's nobody to riot against. Mm-hmm. We had a revolutionary war. Do you realize why we had a revolutionary war? To get the government out of our lives. Yeah. To get the government, we had a revolutionary war, and that's why ours was righteous. Because we wanted the government out of our lives.
And it is unfortunate, actually, for these people, even though my heart does go out to them, and they are doing the right thing, mostly. But at the same time, you had a democracy that you voted in these socialist policies. Now, perhaps these people that are protesting are the ones that didn't. I don't know.
So I'm going to play this in the background. This is like pro-independence Barcelona.
Because I would hate for somebody to say here, like in the United States, if socialist policies were voted in, that it's not every American that voted them in. So but at the same time, as a society, socialism was democratically voted in. And, communism all these things are usually actually voted in, or after a revolution or an overthrow or something like that. And it's like taking from everybody to redistribute it just doesn't work. Right. And they're finding that out now. But I guarantee you that a lot of these people that are protesting are not going to turn, just 100% capitalist overnight. They're still going to want handouts from the government. They just want their handouts, and they don't want the government to take so much from them. And so it's just...
You're always going to have this push and shove with a socialist government.
Yeah. It's difficult. And that's why we are libertarians. Mostly, by and large.
So these were that was in Barcelona with the pro-independence. The police forces clashed with members of pro-independence action group committees for the defense of Republic, the CDR, in front of the National Police headquarters in Barcelona. But I want to give you kind of like give you the other side of this. We're talking about the socialism. We're talking about the government. We're talking about fighting back. But why? What are you fighting back for? What? End of full-time mums. Over 75% of mothers in the UK now have to work. And, pre-World War II, very few women worked. I mean, you see
outside
of the home. Yeah. they raise their children at home. The era of the single breadwinner able to support his household on a family wage appears to be truly over in Britain. The Office of National Statistics figures indicating over 75% of mothers now have to work. Now, I know you guys talk about your NHS like it's like saving lives, but what lives is it damaging in the process? Okay? You don't have moms in homes, and it's not because women want to work. Okay? Yeah. The number of mothers in the labor market has grown substantially over the last 20 years. The ONS Bulletin explains with the number of women with dependent children in the workplace from an already high at 66% in 2000 to 75% in June of 2019. In 2019, 3/4 of mothers with dependent children were in work, up from 2/3 of mothers at the start of the century. Let's see, fewer than 3 in 10, 28% of mothers chose even to reduce their working hours after having children, although it seems likely that many more of them felt such a choice was not open to them for financial reasons. Full-time motherhood may have collapsed partly because it is strongly disincentivized in the British tax system. So here we have again, the government in all its whimsy, in all its intelligence. When you use money, and especially taxes, you will herd people in down to different tubes, and they'll do it for $100. They'll do it for $200, Bob. People will do it for they'll do it for $20. You continue to, you can incentivize people into certain things. Stay-at-home moms cannot transfer their income tax-free personal allowance to their partner. You guys tell me what this is. I don't know about this personal allowance to their partner, and the only state support they receive is a limited amount of free or subsidized childcare. Stay-at-home moms, the only thing that they get from their state is free or subsidized childcare, but they're stay-at-home moms, so they don't need that. So why not incentivize it another way? Because you're going to be paying for it. It just, you know what I mean? Standard child care benefits payments for their first 2 children and the national insurance credits until their youngest child turns 12. Britons need 35 full years of national insurance credits to receive the maximum state pension of £168 per week once they reach the state pension age of currently at 66. $168 per week, and you have to work 35 full years for that?
Wow.
That's a joke.
Well, it's not dollars, it's pounds.
Well,
so it's a little bit more.
It's a little bit more. Okay, $200, you get $800 a month, basically. Working mothers, on the other hand, can be rewarded for their lifestyle with tax credits on top of their personal allowance and child benefit payments, and many more hours of free or subsidized childcare. The British approach contrasts strongly, and this is definitely, this is the antithesis to Margaret Thatcher, because I've heard her speeches on how the country to be strong needs stay-at-home moms. Mm-hmm. She was a conservative in the sense of morality and strong families, and she's what helped make your country so great. I mean, she spoke out against feminism. She wanted women to be smart and to be strong, but she also knew that these younger ages, kids needed their mums at home. Right. This is in stark contrast to what you see in Hungary and Poland, who are now using, and in Italy, who are now using incentives to for moms to stay at home. It's like total reverse. Like if you stay at home and you have so many kids, right? You can have
a house,
loans, free loans, and your student loans paid off and things like that. To show gratitude to the mothers and grandmothers who have devoted their lives to bringing up children. All this, a lot of this has to do with like good food and healthy atmospheres and things like that. Europe is at a crossroads. Western Europe seeks to address the problem of demography with simple solutions, which only offer short-term success but convey catastrophic consequences in the long term, says a Hungarian spokesperson. Hungary has a long-term approach that opts for a more difficult path, encouraging births by placing the interests of families in the focus of politics rather than even further flows of migration. So you have this total contrast where you have in the UK such a focus on transgenderism and gender ideology and turning kids into boys into girls and boys into girls, in Hungary and Poland. Like, let's just make families great again. Yeah. So on to, I don't know if people had comments. We're just kind of talking and talking and talking.
Not really.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Nigel
Nigel
here is going to explain what's happening with Brexit. Is this the death of Brexit? I'm going to spoil his punchline. It is not the death of Brexit. I'm going to spoil it a second time. He says this is actually the best thing. What's going to happen, hopefully, is giving, hopefully, a chance of a breather. Because Boris Johnson's... Well, let me just let him tell you.
This is great.
I headed off to Strasbourg again this week. I think it's about my 240th visit since I got elected there 20 years ago. And I suppose in some ways I was full of anticipation because we knew the big vote was going to take place in the House of Commons on the new EU treaty that Boris had negotiated a few days before. And quite a lot of speculation that it might just get through Parliament. Now, I, of course, was hoping that it wouldn't, because it is not a great new deal, as Boris says. It's actually a very bad old treaty. Anyhow, we arrived in Strasbourg and we had a big debate on Tuesday morning, headed up by Jean-Claude Juncker, who of course has been the boss of the European Commission for the last 5 years, famous for his long lunches and louche lifestyle. Actually, on a personal level, I find him quite fun. You can like people that you disagree with. So it was Juncker's finale, his farewell. So I went to say goodbye to him. And he's always very civil, always very funny, always very charming. I said, so Jean-Claude, I said, no, nearly 20 years as Prime Minister of Luxembourg, 5 years as boss of the EU. Is this retirement? No, he said, I'm going to write a book about you, which I thought was really quite fun. So Juncker gone, but another personnel change that really matters, it's that man, Michel Barnier, our torturer over the course of the last 3.5 nearly years, the EU's chief negotiator, and his work was done because the treaty, the withdrawal treaty with the attached political declaration, that was Barnier's work. And Boris Johnson had agreed to it, just of course as Theresa May had agreed before. And that was to be it. However, now they've announced that Michel Barnier has been reappointed for the next phase of the negotiations. And I think one of the things people just don't quite get is when Boris says, please pass this for me, we'll get Brexit done, it's not true. All that does, that's the first stage of this over. The next part is the negotiation of a free trade agreement. How long will it last? Well, Michel Barnier, shortly after his reappointment, said the free trade talks will go on for 3 years or longer. That's right. We've just been through 3 years of agony. It's going to go on for 3 years or for longer. So you pays your money, you takes your choice. Either you believe Boris that this gets Brexit done, or you believe Michel Barnier that it will be at least another 3 years. So I spoke in the debate, and I did sort of tease them by saying, would this be the last time I'd speak to them in 20 years? Have a look. Well, after 3 agonising years of negotiations, Michel Barnier gets Boris Johnson to sign us up to a brand new treaty, which guarantees 3 more years of agonising negotiations and, frankly, reduces the United Kingdom to the status of a colony of the European Union. And why is Boris doing it? He's doing it because he doesn't want extension. He's doing it because he knows that extension damages the Conservative Party in the polls. So he wants to bounce us in to this new treaty before we wake up. It's the same story every time. It's about the Tory party, not about the country. And what we need is to build a Leave alliance of those across the political spectrum to fight and win the next general election. The only way we can leave this place is with a clean break Brexit. I would like to think, like Mr. Juncker, that this is my last speech here in 20 years, but somehow I've got the feeling, I'm sorry, I'd love it to be,
would you let him finish?
You'd love it to be,
colleagues,
but I have a feeling we'll be back in November.
They're trying to shut up, they're laughing.
And here's the point. Actually, what was happening after that Thursday night meeting in Brussels, over the weekend and into this week, we saw Conservative members of Parliament, ERG members, people who are, I think, as Eurosceptic as I am, saying, yep, we are going to vote for it. Going to vote for it despite the fact they hadn't even read the blooming thing, that few of them knew what the content was, but it was mainly being done about bringing the Conservative Party together. That classic moment that we see in British politics where party and career come above conviction and country. Well, dramatic moments, of course, that evening in the House of Commons, and I wonder whether it would pass. I wonder whether the final vote would take place on Wednesday or Thursday in Strasbourg, because it's the European Parliament in the end that has sign off on this. And Boris got a majority. He got a majority. The fourth time the withdrawal agreement was put to Parliament, he gets a majority. He gets it because, as I say, the ERG members vote for something that they don't understand or believe in, and cynically, quite a lot of Labour MPs, 19 of them, vote for it so that they can say to their Leave constituencies, particularly in the north and South Wales and places like that, look, I tried. I did my best. So that little moment of victory with Boris Johnson, but it didn't last long, because then there was a procedural motion about how long this should be scrutinised for, and on that the Prime Minister failed. You see, what he was trying to do was to bounce the country, bounce Parliament into accepting that he'd got a great victory. Sure, he got rid of the backstop. Yeah, okay, the commitment for the whole of GB to stay in the customs union was gone, but Northern Ireland had been sacrificed, along with our fishing industry and full regulatory alignment that would mean basically that everything from financial services to fisheries, they would make the laws for us for the next few years. And far from getting Brexit done, had it gone through, if it goes through, I think it's actually the death of Brexit, and I'll tell you why. Trapped for 3 years or longer inside a regime where they make the laws on everything, we have to accept it all, and we have no voice, no vote, no veto. I think in those circumstances the demands for a second referendum would get louder and louder, and they actually would have a point, wouldn't they? You know, why shouldn't we have a say over these things? Why should we have effectively taxation without representation? Well, it didn't get through. We didn't get the final vote in Strasbourg. We're now in limbo, or as Jacob Rees-Mogg calls it, purgatory. Now, this is a term, of course, that is very powerful in the Roman Catholic Church. Whether it was done to enrage the Protestant Unionists of the DUP even more, I don't know, because it had been a very tough week for them. Extraordinarily, even the Prime Minister didn't seem to have a grasp over the detail of what he'd agreed when he falsely in the Commons got an answer wrong. The truth of it is, under this deal, for somebody to export from Northern Ireland to the rest of the United Kingdom would mean filling in customs declaration forms, and Boris somehow seemed to have missed this.
Oops.
So now we have a pause. We have Jacob Rees-Mogg's purgatory. It's been announced that next week there'll be no parliamentary business on either a forthcoming general election or indeed on Brexit itself. There's going to be a pause. And I think into that space, I'm really hoping something useful might happen.
Hope in the space.
I think
This
that
is
the
the
withdrawal
space of
agreement
hope.
and the attached political declaration, I think it's going to be a little bit like a nice piece of cheese. You've got it out of the fridge, you put it on the table, it's really appetizing, it's new, it looks great. And then what happens is if it stays out of the fridge too long, it starts to smell. It starts to become inedible. And I think as much sunlight as we can shed on Boris's, I quote, Great New Deal, the more likelihood there is that people say, well, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. And even the understanding that a transition period that can go on to the end of 2022 means that our estimated cost of leaving, which started off, if you remember, at 39 billion, now goes up to about 65 billion, and there'll be fact after fact that comes out. So I'm actually grateful. I genuinely think if this had passed, it would have been the death of Brexit, not the making of it. We've got a chance now to have a proper debate. And I also think the chances now of a general election happening are very limited indeed. Why? Well, because those joint geniuses, Cameron and Clegg, left us with this Fixed-Term Parliaments Act. It needs 2/3 of the House of Commons to vote to have a general election, and Labour are in such a mess. Labour are doing so badly that Corbyn, at least Corbyn's party, can't possibly agree to an election in which lots of them would actually lose their seats. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Hit the road,
So it looks like the can has been kicked down the road in every sense. We await the announcement from the EU as to what extension we're going to be given. And I guess it's going to be until the end of January. Don't know the facts on that yet, but it'll be until the end of January. And I think, oddly, we're going to go on now, perhaps for some time, with a government that's in a minority position, that can't get any legislation through, a complete zombie parliament, confidence in this country in terms of our politicians, the whole system, pretty close to the verge of collapse, and yet we're just going to limp on. I don't think the general election now can come, probably until next spring. Now, of course, making these predictions is dangerous, although Adam Bolton on Sky News this week did call me Mystic Nigel, which I thought actually was quite a compliment.
That's
so
hilarious.
I'm actually breathing a sigh of relief. I can't thank Sir Oliver Letwin for his amendment, or John Bercow for playing the games they played. I can't thank either of them. I can't bring myself to do it. But the fact we have now got some time to pause and reflect ahead in a new direction, I think that's very positive. I think it's very good.
That's
We've
really
got a chance.
good
I think
interpretation.
at that general election, Boris can also drop the treaty, drop the withdrawal agreement, press the reset button, start again, try to build a Leave alliance, because that would win a general election. It would win it well, and we'd be there as the Brexit party, helping, working with them, making that happen. We already know that the Liberal Democrats couldn't care less how you vote. You know, they want to revoke Article 50. The Labour Party now want a second referendum with a completely and utterly false choice. The Conservative Party want to bind us into something that will keep us trapped for years and would probably lead to a referendum in which people would vote to rejoin. The Brexit Party's position is the right one. It's quite simple, really. Either you stay or you leave. And I think we should leave. And many of you think we should leave. And if we can drag, kicking and screaming, the Conservative Prime Minister to that position, then we will properly get Brexit done.
Wasn't that just amazing? Like, I could have just talked to you guys and yabbered on about what's happening with Brexit, but
It is far better to have Nigel.
Nigel explained it so well, and you know, he is the eternal optimist, and
He does a great job of keeping spirits up, because he understands that when morale goes down, you start to lose.
yeah, and I think that maybe he's not the mystic. I do believe that he is anointed by God and led by God to make Britain great again, and to get you out of this European Union where we kind of have all these convoluted laws and socialist principles which stifle creativity, stifle individuality, stifle free will and liberty and things like that.
Yes, they do.
So, but to have a guy like Nigel who, you know, is so much different. He's so different than everybody else.
So much different.
Well, I wanted to say he's so much like Donald Trump, but he's really not. But what I meant to say is that he is like Donald Trump in that he's different. Yeah. He's like Donald Trump in that the hits that come at him seem to make him stronger. And I'm not like that. I wish I were like that. There are very few special people out there who remain an optimist, who can take and be fueled by, and I pray that maybe one day I will be. I mean, I think Jesus kind of was. It obviously is. But Nigel takes the hits, right, and he stays positive, at least on the, you know, at least the face of it, which is what people see, which is what keeps people positive. I mean, if it wasn't for Nigel, you guys would be stuck in the European Union. You'd probably have a second referendum, and you would just, I don't even know what would happen. You may not even have a second referendum. And you know that even if you did have a second referendum and people voted to leave again, it would still be in limbo and you'd never leave.
Right.
So Nigel is not necessarily your savior, but he is definitely your hero of the day.
Sure.
Okay.
Let me read some comments. So on Periscope, we have Nigel's right. The term purgatory is also calculated to agitate Protestants versus Catholics. And on YouTube, we had some good comments here. Let's see. ID for voters has to happen or the general election will be a farce, says Stuart the Brit. Expose You Now says Labor are toxic. Get rid of them once and for all. Stuart the Brit says $1 billion a month out of our pockets to the EU. And Jack Russell says he hopes that if there is a zombie apocalypse that they all look like you. Let's see. Abominable Snowman says we're liable to cover the ECB if the euro goes into meltdown. We're expected to cough up $500 billion to shore it up again. Expose You Now says Farage, we love you, man. Wicked Psych says, why doesn't England just leave on their own? Let the other countries in Britain make their own decision. It doesn't work that way. Like, it's just totally impossible for that to happen. But what is actually interesting about that statement is that Boris's deal tried to leave Northern Ireland behind. You don't. You got to stick together. That's the whole point of the United Kingdom. Stuart the Brit says the Remainer have actually helped this country away from this terrible treaty. Thanks, dummies. So I guess it's kind of a good point. Adeline wants to know, does this mean that Boris is actually a Remainer who hoodwinked the population of the UK?
No.
Boris has been Leave from the beginning. I think, kind of like Nigel said, he didn't really read it. I think he's just kind of relying on those around him, telling them that it was a good deal. And I don't know why he's so dead set against. I think
Boris,
he's kind of chummy with some of the people in the EU.
He's the quintessential politician in that, like, he kind of just wants everybody to get along. Like, he says things, he wants to be funny, but he's not a real deep thinker.
He's funny,
but he's not a deep thinker.
So Jack Russell says, fancy spending 25 years of your life fighting the EU. That's incredible to me. Nom Nom says, have to agree to disagree on that one with something I think that Hilton had said. I don't know what that was, but the rest of the comment says, the Tories are the only party representing me, and I used to vote Labour. That's really interesting. Let's see, Jim West, Boris deal, not perfect through transition period, but then the UK is free. Take it and use it. So Jim West thinks they should take it and use it. Stuart the Brit says Boris was put there to get public attention and favor. He was always going to do a bad job. I agree. I was not for him. Jim West says the DUP must realize a dual customs union, all that is possible.
Can I say something in Boris's defense?
Okay.
He's not as dim-witted as he is smart.
Yeah.
And when I say he's not a deep thinker, I don't think he's a deep reader and things like that. I think he's kind of average intelligence. Nigel Farage is somebody with like extreme intelligence. He's a very deep thinker. He looks at all the angles. He reads documents. He's a really smart guy. But with this, Boris knows that the Conservatives are not going to, pounce on an election.
Right.
He knows the Brexit Party is right there. So why does he keep calling for an election, Pat? Why does he keep calling for an election? He went to Jeremy Corbyn and he made an offer to Labour on Thursday night that in exchange for backing an election in December, he would continue the Commons debate on Brexit until November 6th. Speaking to Sky News on Friday, Mr. Johnson said, we can have a debate on Brexit if that's what they really want, if they really think that's necessary, provided they agree to an election on December the 12th. Now, you would have thought that was a pretty good deal from the point of view of Labour Party, but they seem unaccountably split from top to bottom. We've got momentum. Who are the sort of commies who back part of the Jeremy Corbyn enterprise saying they want an election? They say bring it on. And then you've got loads of Labour MPs led by guys like Keir Starmer and Tom Watson and things who don't seem to want an election. Time for Corbyn to man up. Let's have an election on December 12th. Basically, he says even commies want an election. So there are some people in the Labour Party who are willing to risk it all, put it all on the line. But,
That's a great picture of Corbyn, by the way. There are sometimes that good things happen, and President Trump does do something in his administration. Like, you do realize that, like, they do kill bad guys in real life. Like, this happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be fake just
they
because
don't
it's
always
good.
kill the good guys. All right, we got to go.
All right, God bless.
I was cold.